Alright, we're live. Oh. Alright, let's pull up the standings and see how we're doing currently in the season. This is round 9 of currently 10, so it'll be interesting to see how this season comes to a close with, I think, Marley in first position now, followed by Nui, and I can't clearly see it at the moment. It would be... Clown in third, Oblator in fourth, and Arsik in sixth, in fifth. Dakuza in sixth, Shaggy Dan in seventh, Ricky Brosh in eighth, Smolda in ninth, and Lusty in 10th. That's running out the top 10 of the AOR Tier 2 on the PC. And with that, we're going to go to pictures live from the racetrack, currently watching qualifying.
Ricky Brosh there in the chat as he actually sprained the muscle, I think, or torn the muscle in his left leg, if not mistaken. Yeah. So he is having, I mean, the right leg, he's having a little bit of problem getting that gas pedal to the metal. And he sprained that muscle, so hopefully he'll recover. And as you can see it with Ricky in 8th position, that's going to put him at a disadvantage for getting into 7th with Shaggy Dan in this race. So we might see Ricky increasing his position in this championship. Starting, I just gotta say, Marley, look at this. His first race, 15th position, then 8th, then 5th, and a triple second position race in round 5, 6, and 7. And then the first place in 8th, I'm in the 8th race
at Hockenheim. Marley currently being probably the most consistent driver of the pack, as well as the most improving driver. Today's going to be also the third race for, I believe, WMDR Martin, if he is here. I'm not sure, as I haven't seen his car yet. Currently, we're just watching the drivers setting up their lap times. We have 4 minutes and 30 seconds remaining on the clock. Currently, Arsik in the AMG is in first position, just under 1 second ahead of everybody else. That including Lusty, Marley, and Clown, 2 of which drivers are currently in the first and third position of the championship.
Clown and I have the battle for that podium position in third. He's going to try to cling on to that position. He is in third at the moment, 194 points, and the gap of 23 points to Nui in second place. So if Clown wants to try to up his position, he's going to have to pray for that Nui and Marley have some sort of disaster in the coming 2 races. Yeah, so I think this might be one of the more chaotic races, as we're going to have rain in the whole race. As you can see, I just brought up the map, and instantly we have a shitload of hairpins here and 90-degree turns, so you might see a fair few interesting moves, as well as a really high-low left turn kink there down in the bottom left. So yeah, I can't wait to get into the race and see what the rain is going to do today.
I believe we have a new car in the pack as well, as the Mercedes that's in front of Clown at the moment is one with a livery that I haven't seen before this season. I believe it's the Black Falcon Racing AMG with the red stripe. I do not know which driver it is at this point in time. It could be that Oblator has taken the wrong livery on his car, but and it does appear that he has done that, as he was usually running the Hot Wheels livery with his teammate Arsic. So I apologize for that. We don't have a new driver, but we have a one-off livery this race.
It's gonna be a little bit easier to see which of them they are, as both of those Hot Wheels are kind of similar, so it's gonna be easier to see which of them are Oblator now. So. Speaking of Oblator being a former T1 driver consistently.
Currently seemingly struggling though with qualifying pace, as he's only in 10th position with a 1:19.697. Let's see if he can actually improve on that on his next hot lap, as it currently seems he is slower than his best delta in Sector 1. And let's watch what he does in Sector 2.
Just invalidated a whole lot of track. Lap times, as he's. Oh, that's not him. There he is, just jumping into 5th place.
And
seemingly track limits being an issue on this track. A difficult thing to handle, as you can go on board a little bit with Clown now, as we see. A very undulating track with that straight finish. Downhill, and then
excuse me.
It's gonna be insane in the rain.
Yeah, turn 1, especially the first sector is gonna be an interesting thing to see, as, like you've said, we have rain, and it's a very, very technical part of the track, and it'll be extremely difficult to see drivers actually going for the overtakes. But it might just happen down into turn 1 and possibly down into turn 4, I believe it is, as there is a very, very short straight, and if you don't get turn 3 right spot on, you do leave enough room for another driver to move up beside you.
Really interesting track this, because you have kind of some straights and you have a lot of twist a bit, so let's see different types of passing moves in this track. 10 seconds left to qualify now. It seems like Rick is firmly in the lead with 3.5 tenths ahead of Clown in 2nd place. Clown still in the pits. Rick is still on the hot lap though, so he might even improve.
He might take this hot lap to an even further stage, that's true. But we do still have Marley and Oblator in qualifying as well. Oblator currently in 7th and Marley in 6th. Which is interesting to see, as Marley seems to be struggling for pace here then. Being the first of the Lamborghinis at this track. Apparently the Lamborghini not being as dominant as on some other tracks this season.
Yeah, Marley increasing his lead to, increasing his position to 5th place, just ahead of Master. There we have it. This is our qualifying grid with Rick and a little bit of a celebratory crash. Still on track. It's Howie.
Possibly S4 Howie going for the pole position. Let's see if he can actually pull it off.
It'll be a miracle that he is 2 seconds and 3 tenths, almost 4 tenths off Rick's pace now. So hopefully it's going to improve.
It does improve to 1 second and 1.5 seconds, so he's finally out of the 1:20 and into the 1:19.
That could be a crucial position for him to get that, as he kind of got a fair few positions, just instead of having to catch those positions on the racetrack is much harder than doing it in qualifying, so good final lap for him, considering his earlier position. So,
and as we have it now, we're going to transition from the qualifying into the race. As per usual, we will see the cars on the grid with the drivers putting in their setups, and then we'll have them do the formation lap, after which the pole position driver has the right to decide when the race starts in the acceleration zone.
Indeed. I'm just looking up the leaderboards for the track times, as our fellow racer Ricky Broch is saying that there's a lot of fast times already. So I'm gonna try to have a little look. Unfortunately, I'm not so familiar with this track, so I have to cheat and look at the leaderboards. Go Sugo. So about this track though, this is actually this track is in Fukushima, I believe, like the region that had that nuclear meltdown.
So you might see a two-headed deer on the side of the road if you really watch out. Hopefully they won't run onto the track.
Yeah, hopefully that rain that we're having is not going to be of nuclear content, I believe. I guess. I mean, gonna check the lap times now. The best lap time in an Audi is a 1:17.6, and that's by, I don't know. That's his name. Yeah, so here we have then the grid. Already raining.
Already raining on the grid. Arsik in first position, followed by Clown, Lusty, and Dakuza. Marley, Matster in a surprisingly well-placed 6th position, followed by Oblator, Shooter 80, and Shaggy Dan only in 9th. Gosku in a well-done 10th position at the moment, followed by S4 Howie, Smolda, Midweek Coma, Nui, who is currently positions 2 in the championship. Interesting to see him very far back on the grid. Storment and
forums that Nui said that he wanted to skip qualifying as he had like 20 minutes of practice on this track, so we might see Nui falling.
We might. Storment, Ticklish Picklewickle, and Mickasby apparently rounding out the grid, or finishing the grid. Mickasby being the slowest driver in qualifying, but as he has shown this season, a very good fighter for position and always a joy to watch if there is somebody close to him.
Yeah, last time I was with you in the commentary box, we saw an amazing drift by him at Bernal. That was cool. Hopefully we might see some drifts from him again in this race, so I'm just going to bring up the map again. We can go on board with Rick, as you can see, coming onto that straight now in the 2nd sector. A very undulating track there. It's either a uphill or downhill track.
Yeah, there are seemingly no flat areas on this track at all. All the corners have camber on them, so it's very likely that we won't see puddles. And even if we do, they might be in position or in areas where the drivers aren't necessarily going to drive, so we should see some good overtaking.
Rick keeping it steady in the formation lap, trying to keep the pack together. Oh, there's some interesting cameras on this track. I don't know if that was bug for you.
The interesting camera is making a return this race. We had them in Catalonia, where sometimes I would just look at the sky. A very beautiful sky indeed, but not where the racing happened.
Actually, just something I realized when I was testing Catalonia. I thought like the replay cameras were kind of like handmade in Catalonia instead of here. I think it's just the cameras. So I think they actually fine-tuned zone, and as you said, Rick can start the race whenever he wants, so we're gonna try to listen for engine tone.
And the race is off. Arsik with a great start. Clown possibly coming under attack from Dakuza or Lusty, with Lusty going up the inside of Dakuza, but Dakuza seemingly holding on. There's a bit of contact between Ticklish Picklewickle and the car behind him, I believe, or he's lost some space. Currently we have Matster staying in position, having a little tap from behind from Oblator. Shaggy Dan making up some space that he lost in the first few corners. Clown following very closely behind Arsik at the moment, but those two having already pulled about a 2-second gap on the rest of the field. The The rest of the field being led by Dakuza, followed by Lusty, Marley, and Matster. Just behind that are Abletor, Shaggy Dan, Shooter 80. Shaggy Dan, who is now past Shooter 80, I believe, as he started behind him. Gosku in 10th. S4 Howie in 11th. Smolda, Nui, and Midweekoma in 12th, 13th, and 14th, respectively. And Stormen, Ticklish Pickle Wickle, and Mickesby completing the grid.
There's a few of the battles further back in the field, as we see with the Nui and the boys. Nui trying to catch up with the pole a bit. I'm kind of confused which one of the cars the camera is following, because it's the same car. There's a teammate up there.
Nui is, I believe, the #1 car, and Midweekoma is actually going up the inside of turn 1 from Nui. Can he make it work around turn 2? And he goes past the #2 Audi, passes the #1 Works Audi. Pretty good move by Midweekoma right there. And we have, I believe that is Smolda going side by side with S4 Howie just in front of them. Smolda squeezing past, I believe that is turn 5 or turn 4. It's very easy to get confused on the which corner is which, and S4 Howie actually going very slowly and backing up Midweekoma into his teammate Nui. Shaggy Dan being very close to Alwater, showing himself in the mirrors and trying for a move around the outside, it seems.
Oh, that's a camera. Oh, Shaggy Dan doing the switchback, looking on the outside.
But Alwater taking a very defensive line there. Alwater currently seeming to be a bit slower. Alwater goes off track, loses a lot of time. Swerves back onto the track and loses out the position to Shaggy Dan, and might just come under fire from Shooter 80, as he is now right behind him. Shooter 80 and Gosku just dive. Shooter 80 diving into the pits, it seems, to make a very early pit stop, possibly for the very early undercut. It doesn't look like he had damage, and no, he did not have damage, so this was a tactical pit stop to possibly keep his tires from cooling off at the end of the race.
We got kind of baited by the times there. I think they had the bug and said that they had the same time, but there we go then. Nui battling with Howie. I mean, Storm trying to catch him.
And in the time that we were watching Shaggy Dan, Ablator, and Shooter, I believe Midweekoma has actually lost quite a few positions, as he's currently in 16th, which means Ticklish Picklewickle and Mickesby have moved up into 14th and 15th, as currently the last driver on the grid, or last driver on the track, is Shooter 80, as he was the first to pit. And there seems to be a bit of contact maybe between Ticklish Picklewickle and Stormant, is that, I believe?
Yes, that is.
As Ticklish Picklewickle seems to have a bit of trouble in the dirty air of that Audi.
Hard to keep that together in the rain, as the car is so loaded up and being a downhill and then uphill again. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how.
And somebody else is going into the pits. It is S4 Howie has actually dived into the pits as well. I would assume it's also not for damage, as we've not had any contact between Midweekoma going into the pits as well, just behind S4 Howie. Ventus, can you do me a favor? Turn up your microphone volume a little bit. I think it's being drowned out by the engine noise at the moment.
Okay, I will. And if this helped, just let me know in chat. I'll try to. Yeah. Hey, we actually have Andrex in chat as well. Yeah. So. Yeah, Rick is just still in the lead with Clown behind him there.
Clown also being a very consistent driver with some very bad luck this season. Having been robbed of what feels like 2 victories in this season already. Possibly wanting to take his 2nd win and staying close to the back of that AMG.
Being in 2nd? No, he's in 3rd in the championship. So, yeah, Clown there being robbed by that, I can't remember. Yeah, the New Zealand track. I can't remember the name. Did he have an incident while I was gone as well?
No, he had the issue. He had issues at the first round, or in the first round at Sonoma Raceway, and he's had the pit stop issues in Donington Park, which was a race he was leading by quite a margin.
That's really unfortunate for him, because that actually means that he could be well in the fight for 1st position in the championship. So, yeah.
And he would indeed be, but as it looks right now, he's the only person who can hold a candle to the performance that Arsik is pulling down on the track at the moment. Dakuza having lost 4 seconds since the first lap, and Lusty already 6.5 seconds behind.
Lusty actually being attacked by Marley there. Marley, our championship leader currently, so we might see Marley coming around with one of his unnervingly consistent runs here, as he could probably just stay around in 5th and just more consistent than everybody else has been lately, just grinding those laps and then suddenly appearing in 1st. So yeah, we might have to keep an eye on him. I think we have a battle for 6th. Shagdan and Marley, Munster, excuse me.
Shagdan going very wide on the corner exit there and losing quite a bit of time doing that. Possibly setting himself up to be attacked by Oblator on the downhill section of the beginning of Sector 2. Currently, the group being Matster, Shaggydan, and Oblator, the fight for 6th position. Shaggydan having moved up from, I believe it is 9th into 6th, into 7th at the moment.
Whole camera, please. Oh.
There he is.
I think we just lost it though, as Nui tried to make a move down in that turn, I think, but the camera did not allow it. Nui going ham now to try to catch Smolder. On board with him as he comes onto that nice straight. There's a lot of straight, so as Clown mentioned on Discord before we started the race, that straight in the 2nd looking on the inside there might actually be looking just to try and see where his brake marker is, as he almost loses out on his brakes.
Oh, Nui having a bit of oversteer on the exit of turn 2 there, losing quite a bit of time as well. It might be that there's actually some puddle buildup now, as it looks like there's a few dark spots on the track at the exit of a few corners.
Out of the pits. Probably doing an uppercut there to try and get out of that traffic, and he's seemingly in clean air, so Shooter now onto Tickler's Pickle. Pickle in that Porsche is gonna have a hell of a time in the rain with Shooter.
With Shooter possibly having a look up the inside into the first turn of Sector 2, but apparently just losing just enough time out of the on-corner exit to not have that chance.
Shaggydan's actually losing out to Master, and actually Oblator catching that position from him. I didn't really catch what happened there, but
it might be that Oblator has made a move or that Shaggydan has made a mistake. But as it stands, those two have actually lost a considerable amount of time to Matzer, who's currently running in a very good 6th position. Marley's still in 5th, 8 seconds behind the leaders at the moment, with Arsic and Clown still dominating this race, being at the very front of the pack. Clown being right on the tail of that AMG.
Yeah, Clown currently setting the best lap times of this race currently, so might see them, both of them, this a little bit of a replay from Burno where it was either Rick or Oblitor. I think both of them battled with Shaggy Dan, and both of them had the race of their lives, they said later on the forums, and we might see.
And Clown going very wide on the exit of, I'm not sure which corner that is, but on corner exit. Losing quite a lot of time now, 1 second behind Arsic. Can Arsic actually capitalize on this and now pull away from Clown? That's the question we should be asking ourselves right now.
I mean, Rick just being an incredibly skilled weather driver, it seems, because of his performance at that New Zealand track, where he just cut through the whole field and ended up on the podium. So yeah, seemingly taking out those skills here again as he is currently leading this. And Clown trying to punish him, pressure him, but makes a mistake himself or something. Rick seemingly being able to bring it a little better now.
But Kuza as well, actually having made up some time at this point. It looks like his tires are going into the range where he can start really attacking, as he has closed the gap from, I believe, 4.5 seconds to 5 seconds down to 4.
Yep, so speaking of tires, I think the track temperature is around 18.
And Clown's made a mistake and lost the second position now to Dakuza. Huge mistake on braking by Clown. Very uncharacteristic of him to actually do one of those. Now he's actually got to fight to get that second position back.
Yeah, no, those mistakes are not going to help him if he wants to. He really needs one of these podium positions to try and keep it together in the championship. So, yeah, with Marley in 5th though, if Marley keeps it in 5th and Clown manages to get into 2nd or something like that, that's certainly going to put Clown in a good position for maybe snatching the championship. In the last race, we might see, if Clown wins that, we might see a very close roundup of the season. Marley there, trying to challenge Lusty. Seemingly race settling down a little bit, considering how the rain is starting to saturate the track, so people start to take it a little bit easy, trying to prioritize keeping the car on track. As I say that now, Shaggy Dan is not
going very deep on their braking, trying to slow that car down, and he's right on the tail of Abelzor in that Mercedes, but going a bit wide on exit, possibly losing a bit of time there, so that he won't have the opportunity to actually attack the Mercedes this lap. We'll see if he can set himself up to do the exact same thing next lap. And Abelzor going very defensive, trying to block the inside line from Shaggy Dan. With Shaggy Dan trying to go around the outside now, down into the downhill right-hander. Abelzor seemingly making it stick, but Shaggy Dan has a much better exit, trying to do the switchback move around the outside. Still side by side, those two. With Abelzor making his car seemingly impossibly wide. Shaggy Dan just having to slot in behind that.
Yeah, Shaggy Dan having these incredible battles with these Mercedes all the time when I'm commentating, at least. So yeah, Shaggy Dan back at it again now, trying to draft behind the Oblitor on the main straight. Coming into the braking zone, might get caught out by the rain, but seemingly
oh, going very wide, being caught out by the rain, as you've just said it. I don't think there was contact between the two drivers, as Oblitor kept going as if there was no issue. Just a very late braking from Shaggy Dan, and a mistake as he locked it up.
I might have to send a little bit of an apology to him after this race, as this looked a lot like the commentator's curse, as he does exactly what I suspected he might do. But he's actually caught up to Oblitor straight away again. So,
and going very early on the inside line, has a lot more pace, it seems like, on the downhill section, but as soon as the cars reach top end, it seems like that Mercedes just has the advantage on the Audi at the moment. Considering the Mercedes is in fact a 6.2 liter V8 compared to a 5.2 liter V10 in the Audi.
Yeah, that long-nosed Mercedes, but Japan still at it though. They're coming into that long right-hander now. This,
Shaggy Dan being right on the tail of that Mercedes, possibly wanting to look up in the draft at the moment as well. Pretty much on the bumper, possibly having a look around the outside into turn 1. They are going side by side yet again. This time around, Shaggy Dan has not bottled it up, and they're side by side through turn 1. But Abletor has a better line into turn 2, and Shaggy Dan can't capitalize on the speed he seems to have on Abletor.
Letting off at all, and might see him make another move as they come onto those last 2 turns before that second sector straight. Gonna go on board with him again.
And as it appears right now, Abletor is actually driving fairly slowly. As you can see that Gasku, Smolda, and Nui are catching him at the moment as well. Abletor going wide into that corner and having a bit of oversteer in mid-corner. Shaggy Dan having a look up the inside of a double right-hander, but does not have the better exit and has to slot in behind Abletor again. Must be a very frustrating position for him to be in at the moment. Let's see if he can actually make something work on this upcoming lap. Going very late under braking, Shaggy Dan trying to go around the outside again. Abletor was maybe a bit early. Shaggy Dan now has the outside line into turn 2 and the inside line into turn 3, and he makes the move work. But Abletor is possibly looking for a switchback as he now has the better line. But Abletor actually taps Shaggy Dan in the back, and Shaggy Dan has made the move work, it seems. But now those two are coming under fire from the 3 drivers behind, namely Gasku, Smolda, and Nui. Gasku running a very good race for himself at the moment as he's up in 9th position. Matching his... looks like it too. Possibly Smolda on Gasku as well. And behind them we could see the headlights of Shooter 80 as well, who's moved up into 12th position. And as we've just seen, Nui has made a move on Smolda, meaning Nui is now in 10th position and Smolda is now in 11th.
Yeah, Nui looking like he was about to pounce there. He looked like he was really ready for it, so I'm not surprised that this, of course, after all, is our second place in the championship at the moment, so...
And Abletor actually possibly coming under fire from Gasku as well now, as the white, blue, and orange Audi is running a very good race at the moment.
Yeah, Abletor losing, as you can see on those lap times, Abletor running a 1:31.3 and the Gasku a 1:34, but of course Abletor being under fire by Shaggy Dan is going to compromise that time of first. Abletor might be a little bit shaken by that hefty 3-4 lap battle with Shaggy Dan, so Shaggy Dan running away a little bit.
A little bit in the front, you're right.
Yeah, almost 2 seconds ahead of Abletor there, so probably relieved to get ahead of that incredible fight. And
Nui and Gasku following the Mercedes very closely. Nui following Gasku actually closer, or more closely than Gasku was following Abletor, with Abletor actually being able to pull a little bit of a gap on the pack of Audis and that Lamborghini.
I currently have a timing bug, so I have no idea what the gaps are, but here we go. so it's fixed again, and it seems like Mikkesby is actually having a little scrap with Storm. If the cameras can decide, yes, there we go. Yeah, so Mikkesby climbing from the last position to 14th.
To 14th at the moment, but we do have to realize that Midweek Coma has already pitted, so he is actually on the racetrack, currently not at the moment in front, but as Mikkesby still has to go into the pits, he is in terms of track position for the race results behind Midweek Coma, so currently in 15th position. What I do not know is if Ticklish Picklewickle has already pitted, as he is very, very far behind, currently running in 16th position, I believe currently last? Or is there another driver behind them?
He had a battle with Howie, and they might have had an incident since they're so far back, but I don't think so. But yeah, we're gonna jump back into that midfield battle with Newey.
And we've got some very interesting camera angles again. As we see New being very, very, very close to Gosku again, and Gosku maintaining the gap on Oblator, putting pressure on the former Tier 1 man, seeing if he can get that man to crack.
Yeah, Oblator, his teammate currently leading the race. Oblator kind of comfortable. We haven't talked too much about as I say that Gosku is on attack.
Also, what we have to realize is that currently it seems like Shaggy Dan is pulling up lap times to almost match the very top of the leaderboards at the moment, as he's driving just about as fast as Clown, Lusty, and Marley. So it will, if he keeps this up, it'll only be a matter of time until he catches up with Madster. Nui having a look up the inside of Gosku. Gosku giving him enough room, but Nui not having the line to capitalize. Giving Oblator a bit of breathing room as the Audis are battling it out, losing a bit of time doing that as well. But just behind them you can see Shooter coming up as well. Due to all the time lost, this might become a 5-way battle for 8th position.
Indeed it does, and it seems like the Kusa is kind of catching Rick here. We were talking about it being a 3.5 second gap between them, but
and
I think that's on that cars.
I believe that is a lapped car, which might be the reason why Dakuza was catching. So as for Howie being lapped by Arsik, as for Howie of course having been in the pits as well, so he is not in fact 1 minute and 30 seconds behind, but only about 1 minute and 10. Depending on how long a pit in this place takes. Or possibly a minute behind, which is already quite the gap considering we're only about 1/3 of the way through the race.
Currently getting a fair few errors on wheels, so I might crash, but I think we're gonna be fine. Yeah, going back to that battle with Nui.
Gosku getting not a very good exit, possibly putting himself under fire from Nui. But as it seems, it looks like Oblator is always kind of losing a bit of time at some place, which gives Gosku enough, or just the gap that he needs to pull out and keep in front of Nui on the straights. And as I say that, Nui is actually going to the inside, and there's almost no room between them. But Gosku does a very well job defending his line currently from the championship second.
Yep. Just checking on Marley now, our championship leader currently. He's still in 5th and actually catching a little bit too lusty in front of him. So yeah, they're coming into the second now, into the twisted bits now. So Marley letting reasonably, yeah, one of the best lap times actually. I think that's the 3rd best lap time on board, so excuse me, that actually goes to Midweek Coma. Midweek Coma has actually got the fastest lap time.
Midweek Coma having already pitted as well, as a note.
Yeah, oh, we have Shaggy Dan coming in.
possibly noticing that he's lost a bit of time on his last lap and deciding to pit to get a bit of that temperature out of these rain tires. What you have to remember is that these rain tires are possibly the softest compounds you can run on a race car. They're designed to run in extreme cool temperatures, so if you slide around and fight quite a lot, you can and will overheat them. So that pit stop might have possibly been to get that heat out of the tires again and give them a bit more grip.
The track temperature is around 20 degrees even in the rain, so 18 to 20 degrees, so that's pretty hot compared to, considering it's the autumn and it's raining, so if you drive really hard you could heat the tires as well, as mentioned. Still having that hefty battle with Gosku and Sugo.
And Gosku being able to pull a bit of a gap seemingly on Nui, as well as closing up on Oblator yet again, seemingly not having the pace to get past, but as we see right now, Shooter's actually going at the inside of Smolda, trying to outbrake him into turn 1, Smolda giving him the inside line, into turn 1 and 2, Smolda, Shooter going on trying the inside of turn 3 as well, decides to slot in for turn 4, 5, and 6 as well probably. Yes, he does.
They come onto those last 2 turns though before that sector straight, so we might see Shooter making it there. See what happens. Yeah, Shooter taking a wide line there, but I think Smolda got off the car really good as well, so I think we might see the same note.
Ventus, I think I need a bit more microphone volume from you, as the game has, it feels like it's decided to get louder again. It seems to be a bit inconsistent.
Yeah, it might be when we go onboard. The onboard is sometimes almost double as loud.
Yeah, the technical parts of Project Cars 2 being a little bit of a gremlin, as the game decided to start us off in a much too loud state to actually commentate, which I had then set the volume of the stream software a bit down, but I sadly cannot change the volume of Insulaventus at the moment, which is a shame. Yes. And Shooter have me explaining that in that time, Shooter having gone past Smolda into turn 1. I think there might have been a little bit of contact in the 3rd sector, but that might just be our perspective, and that hasn't necessarily happened.
Yeah, Smolda almost wins there, as it looked like Smolda was about to smash into Shooter, but managed to break it down just enough to not get into him, but nice move by Shooter there. So we're gonna jump back with the Nui battle further up. And trying to catch up to Oblator, and did we catch Nui passing Gosku?
No, I do not believe we did. Looking at it right now, it seems like Gosku's actually made quite a big mistake, as he's lost a few seconds at least on the Mercedes in front of him. Possibly giving Shooter an opportunity to overtake Gosku before he has to worry about overtaking Nui and Oblator. And Gosku actually diving into the pits, so it seems like he's had a bit of an issue.
Yeah, Nui seemingly hard in the attack for Oblator, of course Nui being our second in championship. So might make the Mercedes guy give him a run for his money. Speaking of Mercedeses, I think Dakusa just passed Rick.
Dakusa has in fact just passed Arsik. There's actually some movement at the front, which we did at the very front of the pack, which we did not expect, with the BMW going past the blue Hot Wheels Mercedes.
Yeah, that's
Arsik doing a 129 flat on his last lap, and Dakusa doing a 127.2. Arsik clearly having made a mistake there, as he now does a 127.8, just a bit shy of Dakuza's 127.6. So Arsic possibly struggling a bit with that very heavy car in these conditions.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that that's a stunning improvement for Dakusa, considering how Dakusa was a very hefty midfield fighter in Season 9 though. So seeing him leading sometimes in Season 10 is really exciting, when considering like where he's going to be next season. So
that is going to be very interesting to watch. And as it stands right now, they kind of allow themselves to make any more mistakes at the moment when they're fighting, as just about 2 seconds behind them is Clown as well. And we're going back to the battle between Nui and Ablator. Ablator still being in front of the Works #1 Audi, with the Audi seemingly having problems passing the very, well, heavy and seemingly wide Mercedes. As we saw earlier, Shaggy Dan also having issues passing Ablator. Nui trying around on the outside, maybe having a switchback move. Ablator blocking that inside line as much as he can. Possibly even going a bit further than he's allowed to, but getting a terrible exit on that corner. And that puts him under the fire around the outside. So Nu's trying to go around the outside of Ablator. Ablator just squeezing him as far to the left on the track as he can, maximizing the speed that he can take through the corner, and he makes it work.
yeah, wow, intense battling going on there with Nui trying to charge up the field and just snatch those points that he really needs to catch Marley. Marley being in 4th now. As I mentioned, we have to keep an eye on Marley. He's actually got 1 position. At this rate, he's actually going to end up in 1st, so yeah, Marley being probably getting that 4th position to a pit stop and getting in some lap traffic, because that's how he...
I believe he's not actually gotten the position to a pit stop, as Lusty would be the driver who's lost the position, but it does not appear as though Lusty's been into the pits. Looks like Lusty's actually made a mistake. He's currently 19 seconds behind, and Marley's only 12 seconds behind. And that time does not allow for a pit stop.
Yeah, so Marley might just be as consistent as ever and snatch the 1st place here. So as we said, we need to keep an eye on him as he suddenly appears in 1st place. Yeah, and Nui still on the attack for Ablator here, as you can see.
Whilst in the meantime, Gasco had, I believe, gone into the pits and given the position to Shooter, who's currently closing up on the AMG and the Audi in front of him. Shooter running some very, very high pace there this race, seemingly, having already pitted and being back into 9th position. Meaning that if everybody from around 5th position were to pit, they would lose their position to Shooter 80.
Yeah, that's a very good analysis, if that's what it's called. Pretty cool to see if it pans out, but I just noticed that Rick is actually catching the Dakusa again.
So Arsic, having made that mistake, probably wanting to take that position back as soon as he can, so that he can run his own pace away from the pack.
Oh, Nui though. There's so many battles I want to see here.
Yeah, this possibly being one of the best ones. Ablator being very aggressive on defense, but keeping it just clean enough to keep his position, and that of course slows down these two drivers as well, which puts them under fire from the drivers coming in from behind. For example, Shooter 80, who's running the race of his life at the moment, and Clown has dived into the pits now. We are currently on lap 26. I would assume that a pit stop here costs about 20 to 25 seconds.
That seems about right, as Clown comes out in 5th position. Is just passed by Mats there, or is that some lap traffic?
I believe that is lapped traffic. It might be Stormet or S4 Howie, and there's contact between... I believe that is S4 Howie and Clown, but there doesn't seem to be any damage between the two cars. But Clown has lost quite a lot of time. They're being very unfortunate to come out in traffic, with the traffic not moving out of the way as much as he'd probably like. Losing him. Possibly the possibility of winning this race. It might come down to this very, very... or the championship.
Out of the podium, so that might be a very costly incident there for Clown.
Indeed.
He's in the pits now, just coming out, I think. Or he's... yeah, Mikkesby has actually retired from the race. Went into the pits and retired.
That's why we only have 16 drivers remaining, which also means, again, 16 drivers means everybody scores, so there will be no people or no drivers without points on their tally, on their scorecards today. Yet again.
Seemingly Rick catching Ragusa again. Going a little bit back and forth here.
Yeah, Arsic staying on the rear of that BMW, but seemingly not fast enough to make a move, or deciding not to do that, to maybe conserve a bit of his tires, conserve a bit of that fuel so that he can attack in the later stages of the race. Possibly he has a fuel strategy, with Daku's actually running very wide on that corner exit, which puts them under pressure from Arsic. Can Arsic make anything work into turn 1? It'll be interesting to see, as Arsic probably has a bit more speed out of this final corner now. And yes, he does. Arsic is very, very much on the rear of that BMW, and you can just see the Mercedes power pulling him along the straights. And they're probably going side by side into turn 2, with Arsic outbraking Dakusa on the outside, having the outside line of turn 2 as well, and makes the move stick in, goes past him, and Dakusa has to slot in behind Arsic in turn 3.
Wow, that was an insane overtake there, and beautiful car control by both of those people. As you can see, Dakusa there tapping his brakes, trying to control that car.
And Dakusa actually going very wide on the exit of turn 6, I believe it is. Losing quite a lot of time there as well. Maybe being a bit baffled, a bit surprised by the move that has just been made on him, as that was quite incredible, and I would not have expected the Mercedes to brake that well.
Yeah, I think that would have been, that must have looked spectacular from Dakusa's view, as well as I think he's a VR driver, so seeing that Mercedes just coming up on your left and in VR would be just so cool. So yeah, probably a little bit stunned as he's trying to fathom what just happened. But yeah, Rick now just increasing that gap from Dakusa there with a 1 second and 1/10 of a second. Just yeah, Rick being a dominant performer in this race. Going back now to the midfield with Nui.
And Shooter is now on the back of this group as well, which might put Nui under fire from Shooter, as if he doesn't watch it, that BMW will be on his inside, so he will have to be very careful if he decides to make a move.
Yep, Nui there, seemingly losing a little bit of pace against Obligatory there. Might start to feel the pressure from Shooter.
Shooter possibly having the pace to look up the inside or the outside of turn 1, as we've just seen Arsic do, with Nui deciding to dive into the pits, not going to lose any more time behind Obligatory, as he knows he has more pace. And now the next battle we'll have in that group, of course, will be Shooter trying to go past Obligatory. It'll be interesting to see if he can manage, as the BMW is a very powerful car indeed, and the brakes on it are very good. We might see a much easier overtake from Shooter than anything Shaggy Dan or Nui have tried to do.
as you can see, considering the lap times of Shooter and the Oblitor and Nui, Shooter was almost a second up on every lap, so there's a reason Shooter was able to catch them. So you might see Shooter make a move on Oblitor soon. As you can see, there's a slight aggression already as Shooter just points his car a little bit on the inside of Oblitor there. So
yeah, he's showing himself in the rearview mirror of that Mercedes, and I'm sure Oblitor does not like it. Now with the draft through this very long right-hand corner onto the start-finish straight, and Oblitor actually having a very bad line. This might give Shooter just enough space to go around and attack him into turn 1.
They come in. Yeah, Shooter in a good position for a drafter. I can see it just following.
Shooter going very, very late on the brakes, trying to go around the outside, but can't make it work. Having to trail brake into that corner and losing a bit of time there as well. But he does indeed have the pace to make this work, and I think he knows it now as well.
Yeah, a little bit of a shady braking move there by Shooter. As you can see, he's had to control his car very violently in that first turn. Speaking of violent, I think Nui just came out in some traffic and he's currently being attacked by
his teammate who had gone into the pits, and he's actually... What's happened here? We can see the rear wing of a car. The best camera angles in the world currently. Nui's lost the car out of turn 3, it seems.
Yeah, Medvedeva blasting past him and Gosku, it seems. It might have been Gosku that made that mistake. Or there's some lap traffic, that's what it is. So we have Pickle in that Porsche having to move from Gosku. Being a gentleman, getting out of the way.
Going to have to make a small adjustment here to the stream. Here we go.
Going back to Shooter now in the midfield, trying to catch Oblitor still. Oblitor having to defend for his life this race.
Oblitor being the wall of the top drivers at the moment, keeping out anybody who doesn't have the pace to run with the very fastest of them, as he makes a mistake out of turn 6, that is, and essentially just hands the position to Shooter, and possibly even Smolda as well. But Smolda, it doesn't seem like Smolda can capitalize on it, as Oblitor basically parks the car in the apex, and he's let Shooter through, who is now in 7th position. Very, very high up the field at the moment. Arsic having gone into the pits, it'll be interesting to see where he comes out, as he was leading the race. What we have to watch is how close he is to Shooter, and then we can see how much time you lose in those pits. And as it appears at the moment, he's come out in front of Lusty, 15 seconds behind Dakuza.
Nui battling with Gosku. Camera, please. There we go.
Yes, indeed. Nui finding himself on the back of that Audi of Gosku yet again. If we remember...
I just wanted to show that Oblitor's in the pits. Oblitor finally pitting now.
Oblitor finally pitting. As of course, Nui had been stuck behind Gosku, who was driving behind Oblitor for quite a while.
Yeah, Oblitor might actually come out in the middle of that fight. No, he's got to be a little bit in front.
Which
Dakuza's pitting as well.
Dakuza is pitting as well. Now it'll be interesting to see if Arsic can make this work, make it work on this lap. As we are currently on lap 33, we have more than 2/3 of the race completed. There's only 12 laps left, and we'll likely see all the pit stops within the next 5 laps, I believe.
Yeah, considering how you have to pit before the 5 last laps, isn't it?
5 laps before the leader finishes the race. And Lusty just squeezes past Dakusa, but lets him past again, as Lusty has not pitted yet, and it just does not pay off for those two teammates to fight for position when Lusty has yet to make his pit stop.
Yeah, Lusty being a gentleman there, as in Season 9, Lusty was the teammate of the championship winner, Scott, so Lusty being well versed in how to deal with teammates that are faster than him, unfortunately, but yeah, Lusty proving to be a top 5 driver still in Season 10. So seemingly finding teammates that does well in every season. So yeah, we go back to the field further back in the midfield.
Midway Coma be Shaggy Dan now. Shaggy Dan, who seems to be struggling at the moment. Quite a bit, actually. Their last lap times don't hint at it, but Shaggy Dan seems to have lost quite a bit of time. And his car is going very wide on the exit of corners as well, and it's not going very sharply into the corners. As you can see, it's pushing out. There seems to be quite a bit of understeer for the Canadian, with Midway Coma possibly being able to capitalize on that, as he now goes in around the inside, and Shaggy Dan gives him enough room, and Midway Coma is side by side with Shaggy Dan now. Shaggy Dan having the inside line, and Shaggy Dan is able to successfully defend his position for now, but it looks like he is struggling for some of that pace, and Midway Coma is not.
Indeed, the reason I went with the cockpit view of Shaggy Dan there was I tried to maybe catch a view of what it's like to control that car, as you could see him having to make a fair few very quick reactions to keep that car stable, so that might be why he's struggling a little bit. I think we caught him earlier on in the race making a mistake, so might be the car starting to get unsettled as the rain starts to saturate the track more.
And if we look at the lap times now, Shaggy Dan has indeed, from his previous lap time, lost about 1 second. Currently, though, the fastest driver and the only 2 drivers in the 27s are actually it's 3 now, are Nui Gasku and Arsik, with Clown having also done a 127. So it seems like the track is actually losing quite a bit of pace at the moment, with the drivers being able to run very well in the 27s much earlier, as we now only have 10 laps remaining. We're starting to come into the...
interrupt you there. I was going to say, I mentioned it, Marley has actually snuck up into first place. This is what
He has indeed snuck up into first place. And looking at the pit stop time that Arsik has had, which was around a 15-second loss, as he was in first position, and after that 15 seconds, 1-5 behind the leader, Marley might actually be lucky enough to come out in front of Clown.
Indeed, and seemingly putting Rick in a very good position to get this first position, as Rick is 5 seconds ahead of Dakusa after getting ahead of Dakusa and just running away with it currently. So Rick being a dominant racer in the rain, it seems. Just gonna jump back into battle in the midfield with Midway Coma and Shaggy Dan there. So, and it's really unfortunate to see Shaggy Dan struggling there, as he had that amazing battle with
Oblator.
Yeah, Oblator, yeah. Oh.
And Midway Coma possibly having a look around the outside. Shaggy Dan having to brake very, very late there. Midway Coma not being able to capitalize, as he has to slot in behind the Audi to make that move, or possibly put his car into the line for the following corners. And Shaggy Dan going very wide, missing the apex there. Struggling very much with understeer, it seems. He might have some front end damage if the car does not, as the car does not seem to turn in as sharply as it was before.
Yeah, Shagdan seemingly very early on the throttle, as you can see him going a little bit wider there, so maybe not. Yeah, that gap is too big for him to make a move down the inside, but he tried either way, and that's certainly going to put Shagdan under pressure. So, yeah, we have currently a timing bug, so I might be losing a few battles that's going on. So, yeah, Gosku is still fighting Oblitor, and there we have it. Marley is now pitting.
Marley has now started to go into the pits. Coming back out. Whom will he lose his position to? Will he be able to come out in front of Clown? Is that the Audi? That is the Audi, so he's actually lost the position, but not by all that much, and he is in 4th at the moment. So it seems like he's gained time, enough time to come out in front of Lusty.
Yeah, and if Clown now can manage to to bring something out of his hat and move up to 2nd position from Dokusa, and that would really put Clown in a better fighting position for the
championship.
2nd place in the or the 2nd place in the podium. Second place in the championship, as Nui is further. Yeah, Nui is in 14th. Yeah, so this is looking brilliant for Clown.
And Marley as well, as you have to remember, Marley is in front of both of those drivers, but unlike Nui, who's seemingly struggling quite a bit, he's running a very consistent race, consistency being what we know him for, and his pace, it's not being, or it's not top, like, victory fast at the moment, but it's fast enough to keep him very high up in the top 10s. And that's probably enough if he can keep this up to secure him the championship, if he can do the same thing next round as well.
Yes, I just noticed that the gap from Marley to Clown is 40 points almost. It's 39, so for Clown to snatch that first position, he has to most certainly finish 1st in the next race, and Marley has to finish in the midfield, so yeah, still a fighting chance for Clown though. Yeah, just gonna go jump further back with Goska, and I think Oblitor has made another mistake as...
And Oblitor is now back under fire from Gosko. I think we've seen, and Nui is that Nui behind them? That is indeed Nui behind them. We've seen these scenes before in this race, but for a different position. I believe they were fighting for 7th position at the time. Now they are fighting for, sadly, only 12th, but Gasku surely wants to take that position from Oblitor today.
Yes, he does, and if there's anyone that hasn't pitted yet, they should do that in the next 2 laps, or so there might be someone that we didn't catch, so excuse me if I'm not talking too much, but I can feel that my voice is starting to fall apart. But yeah, as you can see now, Oblitor having a little bit of a disastrous race, of course being a very avid defender of his position.
But possibly losing that now out of that corner down into the downhill section. Let's see if Goska can make something work. Going around, faking around the outside, having a look up the inside, but not close enough to make a move. Nui just trailing behind these two. Gasku trying to make... Oblitor making a very big mistake there, going out very wide, putting his car back on track, I believe, after having left the track with all 4 wheels. Possibly deciding to give that position to Gasku, as he did not have the right to defend it at that point anymore.
Yeah, as I mentioned, kind of a disastrous race for Oblitor, just falling further back in the field, but incredible battles either way. for him. So I think it's going to be a good experience, although the position might not be... You might not be satisfied with the position.
It seems like that this livery is very much bad luck for him.
Yes. Yeah, now we
With Gasco now struggling, slowing down and putting Albator under fire from Nui. Nui trying to go around the outside of turn 7 and turn 8, I believe those are. See, I'm starting to learn these turns.
Oh no, poor Albator.
Albator having lost those positions now, running in 14th. Only now in front of S4 Howie and Ticklish Picklewickle. And of course Mickisby, who has retired from the race.
A little bit of a battle going on, and Smolda is pitting. I was about to pan to him, but as I saw the times, but as a Smolda, if the timing bug disappears, I could try to guess where it comes out, but it's not disappearing, so...
It might be an issue though, as I believe Smolda has just been lapped. And the leaders are currently on lap 41.
Oh, yeah, that might be it.
And you have to pit on the with 5 laps remaining in the race from the leaders, which means he might have pitted too late here.
Oh yeah, just about too late. But
or
yeah, so
does it? It shows us that he's 54 seconds behind, and there's is that Oblator? Has Oblator spun? Was there contact between Oblator and Nui waiting apparently? So there seems to have been contact between those two cars. Disastrous race for the both of them.
Yeah, this
Nui
is why I really like league racing. You can see either though. I mean, even if they crash, they are still gentlemen, and Nui letting that position go back to Oblator, so that's what we like to see.
Nui possibly seeing his championship winning hopes crumble right in front of him in this race.
Indeed. Go Scoot. And attack for Smolda. Coming onto the main straight, so we're just gonna go jump on board with him. Gasku
possibly having a look up to to take that 10th position, as Matster is currently running very closely to, or very close to Smolda in front of him as well. Gasku having a look at the inside, going very slowly, making sure there's enough room around the outside for Smolda. Taking the inside line into turn 2, and Smolda slots in behind for turn 3. Very good move, very solid move by Gasku. Good racing on his part.
And Mikova is about to catch Shagadan, I think.
He is they are very close to one another indeed. They are catching up to S4 Howie, and I believe at the moment. Also, I would like to draw your attention to Shooter, who is now less than 2 seconds off Shagadan, going very wide, putting Midwekoma side by side. Can Midwekoma make it work? No, he can't, as Shaggy Dan is just a bit braver under the brake and has a bit more confidence there. As for Howie possibly holding up the white and blue Audi, going very wide on... Oh my god, so much happening.
Howie's just moving away from them there too.
Yeah, Howie trying to move away from them, with Midwekomas trying to stay as close to the back of that white and blue Audi as he can, trying to move around the outside of turn 1, but he cannot make that work.
Shagadan
Alright.
really struggling, it seems, considering, or excuse me, he's actually moved up to 8th position now, so I think this is where we saw them. I didn't really catch how they managed to move up to that position. I can feel kind of a fever coming on, so I'm starting to get slower and slower in my head.
Do me a favor, pan over to Lusty and Shooter for a second. I believe we are going to have a fight on our hands there as well in a very short time, as the yellow BMW seems to be just charging forward in the field at the moment. He's currently in 6th position, but he might have a look up into that 5th position if Lusty can't put the pace down.
Yeah, seemingly having a very hectic last few laps here, as you can see. Not just, yeah, being a bit calm up there in the top field, but in the midfield is just a chaos, trying to scrap for position as much as they can in the end of this, almost the last round of the championship. So certainly the drivers are feeling the pressure to try and just squeeze out every point they can. Oh, as I say that now, Gosku.
Gosku being very close to Nui, I believe, is that?
That's Nui.
No,
that's Matster.
That's Matster. So he's already passed, I believe, yeah, we watched him pass Smolda, and there seems to be a bit of contact there as Matster was moving under braking, I believe. And Gosku makes it work by having the inside line into turn 2. Matster going very slowly now. Seemingly having an issue. And there's contact between Matster and Smolda, I believe.
Yeah, seemingly since Smolda, we could hear him there losing a lot of... he was not accelerating, so... it was an incident there.
So Gosku moving up into 10th position. I believe that would be his 2nd best result this season, if you could pull up your standings.
Excuse me, come again?
What is Gosku's best result this season?
It is 11th.
So this, if he pulls this off, it might be his best result. Which would be very great to see from a driver who's provided us with such excitement today.
Yeah, it's always, when you race in the league, you always set yourself goals. Of course, the goal is, it's of course fun to win, but you really have to be, I mean, realistic, and certainly a good day for Gosku in 10th. Always fun to improve your best position, so yeah. Coma.
So right now we have Midweek Coma still behind the white and blue Audi, and Ablator. Nui has finally passed Ablator. It has finally happened. I think that's a very small victory for him. And only a small victory for him, but at least he has made that work.
Yeah, Coma is actually glued to the tail of Shaggy Dan now. So we might see him make a move.
It seems like he's not close enough down the in the downhill section, and Shaggy Dan, looking at that car, it seems so very unstable.
Yeah, so I really have to say I'm impressed with Shaggy Dan's position, considering how he's got this unruly car. So yeah, 8th position with a car that doesn't behave itself is impressive in my opinion. So yeah,
very impressive indeed. But we have seen some very good driving from him, especially in traffic. He has shown some very great skill on overtaking and defending.
Indeed, and I just can't get over that incredible battle with Oblitor. It seems like Shaggy Dan always have amazing battles with one of the Mercedeses. So
he does seem to have that indeed.
Would you, if you have several Mercedeses, would it be Mercedii?
That is an interesting concept. I believe it would be Mercedeses.
Yes? But,
I do think it would be Mercedeses. And that is the race complete, actually, as we've just missed it. With all this battling going on. Arsik having won the race. Dakuza in 2nd, Clown in 3rd. A celebratory crash. Marley in 4th. Lusty in 5th. Shooter in 6th. Very close behind that. If you see that, Shooter was seemingly closing up to the BMW of Lusty as well. I also believe that this is Shooter's best result this season as well.
Yeah, 6th position for him, that's good.
Stormant coming home in a good but apparently uneventful 7th. Which might be a merit in and of itself, as he managed to stay out of all battles and trouble and run his own pace. And Shaggy Dan, can he bring it home in 8th? It looks like he can. And Midweek Coma has to settle for 9th as he can't get past the Canadian. Gasku taking home what looks like his best result this season.
I think.
So congratulations to him.
I think Howie just passed the finish line with the lap. Yeah, there we go.
Indeed, he has. All right. Whew. That was a very exciting race. I did not expect as much overtaking as we have seen today. I assumed it would be more like the 2 races before it, but I'm happy to have been proven wrong.
Yeah, I'm just checking the standings here. I can see Rick is having... I was just looking to see if Rick in 5th position in the championship could hope for the podium, but I think the gap is just too big to Clown. So yeah,
it
Rick
might
is
be
probably gonna steal 4th position from Oblitor, snatching that position from his teammate. Just that Oblitor coming in 4th.
But I do believe the fight for 2nd position in this season is coming down to the last round next week between Clown and Nui, as I do not believe that those two will be able to catch Marley if he stays on form as he is now.
Oh shit, there's someone calling me. 2 seconds. Yep. Yeah, Marley seemingly so far up in the lead, it's gonna take a miracle for Nui or Clown to be able to catch him now. So yeah, seemingly a hefty battle going on for 2nd position between Nui and Clown. So yeah, Nui finishing so far back in this race, and Clown finishing decently up in where is he? He's in 3rd.
So our finishing... let me just round this out by saying the finishing order app, and it's disappeared. Never mind.
It's disappeared. Classic.
Classic Project Cars. Alright. Do you have anything more you want to do?
No, I really need to go get a drink, I think, because I can feel that my body's about to cook, so... Yeah.
So...
hopefully I'll be better next week.
Next week, exactly.
More energy.
Where are we next week?
We are at... somewhere in America. My browser is kind of bugged, it doesn't show.
Then I'll just see if I can have a look. It might take a while. Why is...
I'm trying to fight it.
I now know what the issue with the audio has been, when why it was so loud on the game. I'll fix it for next time. I apologize as well on that. And it seems like next week we will be at... yeah, this is more difficult than actually commentating the race. It's preparing for the next race at the end of one race. Remember this.
I actually can't find it. I can't believe.
We are at... Oh! This is going to be a great race. We are at Watkins Glen. The setting will be 21st of October 2018. The qualifying starts at 4 p.m. and the race starts at 5 p.m. in-game time, of course. Standard times are going to be, of course, AOR. I think Greenwich Mean Time, 8 p.m. on the 22nd of August. So, we'll catch you then, and until then, stay frosty.